Hello and welcome to the Mommy Consultant. I am Michelle Kay, and this is a space where we empower ambitious moms overflowing with mommy guilt to feel more mindful, calm, and connected so they can build a legacy of mental health and wellness. Don't forget to subscribe to the Mommy Consultant. Just click that button right now. Today's guest is Brandy Hall. She is a nurse practitioner, she is a parent coach and advocate, and we're going to talk today about how difficult it is going back to school. A lot of our moms are having our kids going back to school, and they're trying to navigate all of the difficulties, all the complexities of going back to school, especially our moms who are dealing with kids with special needs. So let's welcome Brandy, and we're going to have this conversation about our wellness. Hello, Brandy. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Mommy Consultant. And I usually like to start with a little bit of a visualization exercise. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to sit back and kind of get comfortable. I like to put my hand on my heart, but you can kind of put anywhere you want. And we're just going to take a moment and just take a deep breath in and out. Again, take another breath in and out. And you can have your breath back at a normal pace. And then I just want you to just take a moment and think of the word wellness. Just pay attention to the images that kind of pop through your mind. And just notice the images when you think about wellness. Okay, we're going to take one last deep breath in and out. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Yeah. So, what came up for you?
I think for me, wellness always brings to mind types of self-care. And I feel like self-care is a more in-depth concept that we're actually taking care of our bodies more than the sometimes perceived like material things that we tend to think about or see like out there as self-care. So my thoughts always come to things like yoga, meditation, healthy food, like vegetables and good foods, whole foods,
Mhm.
water, getting our water every day.
That's always hard for me.
That's that's usually like the hardest thing every day, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's I don't wanna say simple things because people always seem to perceive these things as, like, the hard stuff,
Okay.
but I think really, like, we make these things harder than they really need to be, but these are the healing things that really would make us well overall.
Yeah. I love that you use the word healing because I think like that's what makes it go a little bit more like in depth and
Yeah.
deeper, than that surface level wellness.
Yeah, it is more in depth, and it heals us. It isn't surface level, it's inside and outside, and it's a mental health and it's a physical health and it like physical on your outside, physical on your inside. Like it's so many levels. And that's what we actually need to be taking care of ourselves, so that we can always give quote unquote fill your cup to fill other cup, you know? Like we can't do those things without taking care of ourselves properly.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like, I just started having my child go back into school. And, I think for every mom, that's an adjustment. We
Yes.
go from this summer and then we go like right into like, back to school and all these things. And so I'm just curious for you, what would you say to a mom nowadays who's like trying to get everything together for back to school and then she's like going into the school year? What would you say, to her?
I think the beginning of the school year is like an opportune time for routine.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing about routine is not waiting until the day school starts.
Yeah.
I think we have to remember, like, those things don't start at the start. We
Mhm.
need to, like, work into that. But, I'm one of those moms too. I have a teenager and a preschooler.
Okay.
So, like, I'm on both ends of.
College fan.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, like, we've got, like, multiple situations happening, so I need multiple routines, and it's best to start them, um, I would say 2 to even 4 weeks before school starts,
That's
and
great.
everybody has to adjust, and it's not just a matter of, like, changing their sleep habits,
Mhm.
which if you have a teenager, like, that's a nightmare, um but you have to get them into a new sleep routine, and that just doesn't happen in one night. That's, like, gradual, and it's morning and night, and that's something a lot of people don't think about. It's not just a matter of getting up earlier or, adjusting that time. They need to go to bed earlier, and depending on how much time difference that is, you
Mhm.
can't just put them to bed an hour earlier and expect that to adjust. Like, you have to usually, like, a 15-minute increment is
Okay.
how you adjust that. So, um and I usually recommend, like, a 15-minute increment, like, every almost a week, 5 to 7 days. So, like, if you have, like, a big gap, it can take quite a while. Some kids adjust super easy, but
Yeah.
if we're talking about special needs kids, a
Mhm.
lot of them already have sleep struggles. So, like, making those sleep adjustments can be a big change. Um, and I always like to be like, if we don't let summer get out of control with sleep, then we don't. But in all reality, like, that's super hard, especially daylight savings.
Mhm.
I hate daylight
I
savings. That's a whole, that's a whole nother.
People like getting rid of it. I'm in Florida, and I think they're gonna start getting rid of it.
Oh, I hope
So
so.
do I have a law about that?
They should. I mean, my 3-year-old, she's nearly 4, but she's like, "I can't sleep. Sun's awake." And I'm like, "Listen, child, like, I don't care if that sun's awake. It's bedtime."
Yeah.
But, like, it's really hard when the sun's still up at 9:30 and you were supposed to be up in bed at 7. Like, I need you to go to bed now. Um,
Yeah. And I think like, it's so interesting we're talking about, for our kids having that routine, making sure you're doing that, but I'm also curious even for the routine for the mom too.
mhm,
Like so I think like sometimes we ignore our own routine too as
absolutely.
well.
Yes, and I think that kinda goes back to that self-care thing I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of times as adults, we don't think about us having a routine, but
Mhm.
we all have routines. I mean, you brush your teeth, put on your pajamas, read your book, all those things, that's your routine,
Mhm.
and we just don't think about it like that, but we
Yeah.
really need to have that consistency to have a healthy sleep pattern, and sleep is right up there with the water that we're all not getting.
Yeah.
It's that priority that we need to make, and we need to get enough of that, morning and bedtime, same as the little ones.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have a proper bedtime consistently with, that sleep routine, whatever that looks like for you. And it doesn't have to be long. Like, some people think they can't have a bedtime routine because they need to have, like, a bath and then, read the book for half an hour and all these things. And it really doesn't have to be that complicated. We can just do simple things to take care of ourselves. It doesn't have to be hours or anything like that, but we're skipping those things and we're staying up late because sometimes that's our only time we don't have with the kids.
Yeah.
And you want that reprieve, but at the same time, it's sacrificing our health, and sometimes our mental health. And then the morning routine on the opposite end is just as important, getting some movement if that's,
Yeah. If
you
possible.
know, I mean, for me, like getting up before the little one and getting my body moving and getting my movement in is the only time I can get that movement. So if I have to do that first thing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's so many things that we can do. And I feel like sometimes it becomes kind of like in some ways, like a checklist.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yep.
okay, I gotta do this, I gotta get this done, I gotta do this.
Yeah.
And, like, so what do you feel like you do for your wellness and self care so that it doesn't turn into the checklist, or does it turn into a checklist for yourself?
Well, it kind of does, but
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a habit. And
Yeah.
then, once it's a habit, it you really kinda crave that habit and
Mm,
you enjoy doing the things, and that's always one of those, like, one or the other things. People are like, "I don't wanna work out, and I don't like," but really, once you get past, first the mental block of not wanting to work out,
yeah.
your body will actually start to want you to do that exercise. Like, your body wants to move. It's made to move.
Mhm,
That's why we have all the joints and all the bendy parts and things.
mhm.
So, like, we're designed to move and be active. Um, but you have to beat the mental block and then the physical block
Mhm.
because it's uncomfortable in the beginning,
It
but
is.
it the
It is. You're
yeah.
like, oh, my back hurts, my like legs hurt.
I
It's
can't
like,
sit. I can't sit. Yes. Yeah, you have to really get, like, past those parts, and then your body will be like, "Oh, I didn't do a workout today, like, man, I need to, like, go for a walk at least," you know? And it doesn't have to be, like, super complex workouts. It can be simple walk for 30 minutes, ride a bike, whatever. It doesn't have to be strenuous stuff. It just needs to be moving your body for 30 minutes a day at least.
yeah.
Um, but mine has become that checklist
Mhm.
that just comes into flow, and it's that simple. I've done it consistently enough that those mental blocks are gone, those physical blocks are gone, and now it's just I wake up every morning, I brush my teeth, my workout clothes go on, and I go down and I do the workout. Then it's shower and make the coffee and do the next thing, and I really part of what helped me get into that was, Tiny Habits, if you ever read that book.
Book. I think I read a little bit of it, but I'm really notorious for not finishing books. So
Yeah. Well, I found it was very helpful. He did tons of TED Talks. They were
yeah,
like 10 minutes, and I was like, "Those are super helpful because yeah, books." You
yeah,
know, I have a 4-year-old, 3-year-old. I can't do a book. But it's just like anything that you would do normally. So,
yeah.
like, if I'm making my coffee every day, it's
Mhm.
add, like, one very tiny habit to making my coffee. So, like, while the coffee's brewing, I fill up my water bottle.
Yeah,
And while I'm waiting for the coffee to finish, I drink half the water bottle.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
then
love that.
Yeah, so then I've gotten half a bottle in already
Mhm.
toward how much water I should be having for the day, you know?
64 ounces, or like something like, it's like for your body weight. And women and men are different. That's all I
Yeah.
remember.
Well, I always say, like, half your weight in ounces.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so, like,
Well,
I'm
that's
just like,
weight
you
right
wanna, like Yeah, I know. Strive for that. Um, and it's a lot of water, and then you pee a lot, and I know, it's a thing, right? It's a thing.
Right? And then it's like you can't, for I don't know, for me, I mean, I'm in the 40 plus crowd. So
Yep.
doing it at night, like I can't drink too much at night because it's just
Well,
I feel like
so yeah, I'm there. So like I strive to get all my water in by 4 p.m.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then it's like at dinner, I just have a little bit to like stay wet because
yeah.
I'm like after that, I'm like, I can't be up all night. I got stuff to do.
I know. And I think that's the thing that gets in the way,
Yes.
from for a mom. I think if, because people often ask, like, so what's the difference, like, between like a mom and like, a person who's not a mom? It's like there's so many things that are distractions for us.
Yes.
And especially if you are dealing with a child with special needs, there's a lot more. And I don't want to say distractions in a negative way, but there's just a
Yeah.
lot of things that get in the way
A
that
lot of
make it a little
factors.
bit harder. A lot of
Yes.
factors. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just a matter of so now you have your checklist, right? You have your morning checklist and you're brewing the coffee and you're doing whatever. But
Mhm.
now you have to think about their checklist.
Yeah.
And it's never just a matter of okay, they're going to get up and have their breakfast, get their clothes and shoes on and be out the door.
Mhm.
You need to factor in it's actually gonna take them 45 minutes to put those shoes on, and
Yeah.
it's gonna take them 30 minutes to get their pants on because they hate wearing pants at all,
Yeah.
or she's not gonna wear the jeans,
That's my
right?
child already.
Yeah, yeah, she won't wear jeans at all because they're scratchy or they're uncomfortable or whatever other excuse it is for jeans, so you got the leggings because that's what she will only wear.
Yep.
Well, she
Yep.
doesn't feel like wearing leggings
My
today.
child right now. That's
I
exactly what my child says.
I know, but she wanted the dress that she wore 3 days ago, but it's still in the laundry because who's got time for laundry, right?
Right, right.
So,
Oh
we
God,
can't be
listen to me right now. Well,
I
my
know,
mother said, yeah, she said, I want to wear the dress I had on yesterday. And I'm like, oh, the dress that you got Nutella on and like that you give.
uh-huh,
And I'm like, you can't wear what you had on yesterday. Why not? I don't understand.
yeah, and that's an average kid. So now your special needs kid is fixated on the fact that you don't have that dress ready,
Yep.
and that's a 40-minute fight because they want that dress. I want that dress. I want that dress. I want that dress. I want that dress. And there is no breaking that cycle. No, they can't comprehend that
Yep.
the dress is not available
Yep.
for
Yep.
that option. They're and like they could have Nutella'd all on that dress, and
Right.
they'd be like, "I want the dress."
I know. I know.
And you can't like and then you're like football carry out the door because like there's no other way you're gonna get them out, and then
Yeah.
craziness is happening, and then you're like 30 minutes late
Yep.
every day.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
used I
yeah,
used to go into homes. I was like a behavior tech for kids with special needs and kids on the spectrum, and that's the battle,
yes,
that I think no one really talks about. That
yeah,
battle of trying to get out the door,
yep,
and like you said, having to wake up early
mhm,
so that to prep for that battle because
yes,
it's going to come, or
yep,
you're unsure, and so you just have to get up early for that, and that's
yeah.
so it's harder.
There's a lot of prep involved, and it sounds complicated, but
Mhm,
in all honesty, the prep makes things easier in the long run,
mhm,
and it takes out the overcomplication. And then there are like tricks that are involved with the prep that you can apply to kind of make it all flow a little better. I mean,
mhm,
we can't remove those I want to say complications. And I mean, there isn't necessarily a nicer term, you know, but
mhm,
like if for say that child, if you can offer her two options,
yeah,
then she is more likely to choose from the two options. But if
yeah,
you offer her a dresser full of clothes, she's never going to choose.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if you can also offer those two options visibly in front of her immediately,
mhm,
she may not think, "I want the dress." she's already got 2 things to choose from.
Yeah. That's
And
a good
that can
tip.
eliminate the fight before it begins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's a lot of tricks like that that you can apply, and some of them take a while to kind of integrate,
Hmm.
but it goes back to the routines, the prep, and organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Making that as your routine, making that as your prep, making it something that you normally do.
Yes.
And I know we're talking a lot about that kind of prep for going to school, but I also want to see if we can kind of segue into kind of like the different hats that you might wear um, within the school system. So, like as a parent with special needs, I would think when they're in school, they're dealing with a lot of different people. So not only your
Mhm.
teacher, maybe there's like a nurse, maybe there is, an ESC coordinator. I think I would be curious about what that wellness looks like when
Mhm.
you're navigating all those different hats of the people within the school to try to, help your child.
Yeah, I think at that level, it's very important to be your child's advocate,
Yeah.
and in understanding what that really looks like in the grand scheme. And I mean, there's a lot of hats all around us,
Yeah.
but you really need to know what your child needs and be
Mhm.
able to express that to all of those people. And you might find that some of them understand better than others.
Mhm.
And there's it's I wanna say that it's likely that, like, your IEP coordinator will understand, or, like, the special needs teacher.
Sometimes I worked
Yes,
in schools.
I
So
know, I know, that's what I'm like, you wanna think
you do
that
want to think.
that person is gonna get it, and that's exactly where, like, that advocacy comes in,
Mhm.
because you can't just send that kid to school and be like, She's got it," or, "He's gonna have his back because he's the special needs teacher," or whatever, and they always don't. I mean, there are scary things happening in the news all the time, and, I mean, I just saw one 2 weeks ago where I think it was here locally, semi-local, like, I don't
Because
live.
we're
I'm
you're
in Pennsylvania.
yeah.
So, I saw on the news that oh gosh. Okay, we'll have to cut that out. Um, so I saw on the news locally that a boy started having, some issues at school, and his, um, teacher, I think,
Yeah.
locked him in the bathroom. And initially, they told the parents that it was, like, for 5 minutes. And then it was like, "Oh, well, it
Sure,
wasn't."
you're not supposed to do that at all, like legally.
Yeah,
That is a no.
yeah. Well, then, like, they kept adding a little time to that time, and then as it turned out, he was locked in the bathroom alone for 2 hours.
Oh my
So,
god.
like, that's exactly the kinda thing like, that I'm not saying that happens, like.
No. It doesn't. I know it's not all the
Yeah,
time, but I just feel for that child and I feel for those parents.
yes. So, in that case, like, you need to be very clear with the people in that setting that
Mhm.
this is my child's behaviors and this is their needs. I mean, and not all of our kids are having behaviors at
Mhm.
school. And
That's
some of them, so, and that brings me to, like, segue, right? Some of these kids don't have overt behaviors at school,
yep.
but some of them will mask very well and come home and blow out all of their behaviors at home
Yep.
on the parents in the safe place. So,
Yep.
like, that's a whole 'nother hat we wear as the mom or the parent.
Yeah.
Um, but that's something else we need to discuss with the providers at school, because we're like, homework becomes a factor. I
Mhm.
can't help that child with their homework for 3 hours
Yep.
because we're having a 2-hour meltdown,
Yep.
then we're fighting over dinner, and then we're going to bed. Like,
Yep.
homework is not on the table for us tonight. Um, but the teacher needs to understand that, yes, that child talks too much. I
Yeah.
am aware. I cannot make that stop.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
not within my scope. Like, it just doesn't happen. They have ADHD and they cannot sit still,
Mm-hmm.
and forcing them will cause problems. Please help me accommodate my child.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you cannot, find me someone who can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the hardest thing is sometimes communicating that.
Yeah,
I've found with parents, there's so many emotions that are involved,
yeah.
a lot of guilt that's involved too. And so sometimes it's hard for them even to communicate those words,
Yes,
and,
yes.
and say those things to advocate for their kids.
Yeah, definitely, and that's one of the things that has kind of driven me to where I am now.
Yeah.
Not only having 2 high needs kids of my own, but I've seen the way that things go out in the public, in schools, in the healthcare system,
Mm-hmm.
the way these kids and parents are interacted with,
Yeah.
and how parents a lot of parents don't know how to express their concerns and their emotions and what their children need. And I went into advocacy for these parents and
Mm-hmm.
showing them how to stand up for themselves and their children's needs, because they just get so lost in all of the things. I mean, it's really hard to be a parent in general, but it's really hard to be a parent of a special needs or high needs child, and then to have people not support you. And it's very lonely anyway. But then when you get into these other settings, and sometimes there's just complete disregard
Mm-hmm.
for your situation.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes you really have to fight for your child, and people don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like, some of this has to do, we talk a lot about generational wellness.
Mhm.
So we talk about, what your mom, what your grandparents, taught you, and then how do you kind of teach that or not teach certain things
Yep.
to, kind of going down to your child. So I'm curious about what role does this kind of like communication, if you have a child that has special needs, what role might generational wellness or, how might that role kind of play into that? Is it communication with the family? How do you navigate that maybe with your clients?
I do think that's a big factor, because it comes down, like, we've been taught basically how to think and feel, um, from multiple generations before us. I mean, like, you probably can remember your grandparents telling you what was proper, what wasn't proper,
Mhm.
and maybe even great grandparents, if some people have
Yeah.
clear back. Um, and so, um, I often associate this in kind of like the healthcare setting,
Okay.
because a lot of times we do what the doctor tells us to do because they said so.
Yeah.
And it goes the same way for teachers. And
Mm.
it's not that we should be disrespectful. Like, we can be polite and express our concerns and teach our children how to be respectful.
Mhm.
And but at the same time, like, we should also be teaching our children what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate, and
Mhm.
when to stand up for ourselves. And I think that the generational gap that we have is that we have just always been told and taught that we just do what we're told because that's what we're told to do,
Okay.
because I said so.
Yeah, yeah, we've heard that before.
Yes.
It's because I've said that. I
And
said so. I don't have to give you a reason. It's because I said so.
yes, and that is especially challenging
Mhm.
with a special needs child, because if they particularly have a high needs issue that is more so related to cognitive issues,
Mhm.
their brain doesn't work with "because I said so."
Yeah.
That they can't make that connection. which is not really a very good example or like a very good reason anyway, like
Mm.
because I said is,
Yeah, no.
but
In
yeah,
general, like I think you're kind of thinking like across the board, that's not the best response to give people in general. But I
no,
think for children, it is because there becomes this hierarchy. Like I'm up here and then you're down here. And then I think even more for a special needs child, it's definitely that feeling that I've heard that I'm up here, I'm the one in charge, I'm taking care of you, and you're down here.
yeah, and then it creates that lesser feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like they already have struggles, we don't need to make them feel worse about it.
Yeah, yeah, we don't want that for our kids. I
No.
think we often have to think about what do we want for our kids?
Yes.
And we often want them to feel empowered. We want them
Mhm.
to feel better than what the generation before. So,
Yes.
yeah. Well, why don't you kind of tell us about, anything that's coming up, for you, any programs or how people can contact you?
Oh, definitely. I am working on a group program right now, for parents of high needs children, and I offer one-on-one coaching as well, and it's basically what we talked about here today. I show parents how to advocate for their children, in healthcare settings, as well as in the community, in their families, and amongst friends. Um, and I say that because all too often these parents find themselves isolated and feeling alone, defeated, and kind of just overrun by the tasks and the day to day. And being a parent is a 24/7 job, but being a parent of a high needs child is kind of like being in fight or flight 24/7. Not
Yeah.
only is the child probably in fight or flight 24/7, but so is the parent. And
Mhm.
we focus a lot on that self-care, that wellness for the parent so that they can institute those routines and boundaries and become the advocate that the child needs to get the resources and proper care that they need in all of those settings.
Yeah.
Um, and then create community, and then, work well around home settings and everything because it's often that the family and friends tend to pull away because people don't know how to interact with high needs children. So
Yeah.
these parents find themselves alone and kind of isolated. So I've created that group program and the one-on-one program, and I'm even doing just kind of like brief, like one-on-one coaching spots
Mhm.
to kind of help parents navigate like one-time spots.
Okay.
So I've got that going out right now.
Yeah. And where can everyone reach you? Do you have website? Do you have
Yep, my website is mrsbrandyhall.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Brandy Parent Advocate.
Okay. Great, great. Well, thank you so much for, this great conversation of navigating. And I love how you said high needs kids because I was saying special needs, and I love how you use
Mhm.
the word high needs kids. So thank you for this conversation. And hopefully this will help our parents who are trying to navigate the school year.
Yeah, I hope that helps.
I know. Thanks so much.
Thank you.